Hello folks, Chad Stanton here, a professional woodworker of over 20 years, sharing my knowledge with you. Now before I get going on today's video, I do want to thank the good folks over there at KenCraft. KenCraft is where I buy all my domestic and my foreign exotic woods. Now if you don't live near KenCraft, don't worry. You can just visit them online, order the wood, and they'll ship it right to your door. Okay, so I know it's been a while since I put out a video, a couple of months, and well, to be completely honest with you, I've just got so many jobs going here in the shop, I don't have really time for anything else. But at any rate, I do have that footage that I previously filmed of that mid-century dining room table, and this would be part 4. So just as a review on the table, if you didn't see parts 1 through 3, I'll have links below in the description, but you don't have to worry about those too much. Each one of these lessons is set up specifically for a certain point, perhaps a mistake, and how I fixed that mistake. And this episode is no different. So this is the table that I'll be making. It's got the round tapered legs. You can see that it has a splay of 6 degrees and a rake of 6 degrees. And where I'm at so far in the video, I dry fit this together and I noticed a potential problem that I hadn't thought of. So let's pick up right there where I last left off. All right, at this point I have the long stretchers cut, tenon fitting in the mortise just like I did the side one, and I fit everything together here just to see how it was gonna fit. This is just a dry fit, and I have to say everything's looking good. These are looking level and parallel both directions. I still have to measure and cut the legs for the final height, and the next thing I'm going to do is I actually have to measure and fit the middle stretcher. But having put this together, I noticed something that I hadn't thought of, and I have to figure out how I'm going to do this. And let me show you what that is. Now I know that on these stretchers, because the face of this is tilted at a 6 degree, that means I know I have to trim this top edge at 6 degrees in order for the tabletop to sit on this flat. That I know. But having it set up in this dry fit situation, I noticed something I hadn't before, and that's down there on the legs. So the plan originally is to cut the leg flush with these two stretchers coming in. But I noticed something, that the tops of these stretchers are angled. So if I was to try and cut it, that means the top of this leg would still be angling up. So what I'm going to have to do is I have to take the top of the stretcher here and put a 6 degree bevel on it. That then will give me a level surface on both of these, in which then I can cut the top of this leg off, something I hadn't noticed or thought of prior to this. Okay, I'm going to hold off on dealing with that leg issue. In fact, I even kind of changed my idea for what I'm going to do with that, and I'll explain that in a minute. But right now, what I'm going to focus on making is that middle stretcher. And the procedure to make that stretcher is going to be mortise and tenoned into these side stretchers. And it's not much different than what you saw me do on the previous videos. With my bevel set at 6 degrees, I'm scoring a line in the wood which will be forming the tenon. I'm using my flex cut chip carving knife. I really like it. And it makes a shoulder there for a trench, essentially, for where my saw will start. This helps assure that I can cut a straight line. And I'm just simply cutting down to the depth of the tenon that I need. Using a shoulder plane, I started up on an angle in that little trench, and then I level off, and I can take the material down rather quickly, quite fast. Using my router plane, I have this set to a specific depth, and that is going to make the tenon perfectly flat going across. A great way to get really accurate tenons. And flip it over, do the other side, and I'm all set with the tenon. Now I'm going to make the tenon just a little bit smaller, so I'm just going to cut off the ends here. Up next, I just have to make a mortise for that. So I have the short stretcher out from the legs. I got the long stretcher here, and I found the middle of this stretcher, and also I found the middle going down on this tenon. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line those up together. So with a sharp pencil, trace the outside of that tenon. And with my square, bring those lines across. All right, so that gives me the thickness. Now I just have to get the height on this. So to do that, I'll just simply stand this up. Line up the pencil marks again. Make a mark on top, and then to flip this over, bottom, and this is the section I have to mortise out. So I made the mortise just slightly too wide to fit to the tenon. It's a little bit sloppy. So what I did was I ripped down a real thin piece of wood, and I just glued it onto the tenon here. And it's probably going to be too big now. Let me check and see. Yeah, it's too big now. But what I can do is once that fully dries, I can slowly plane that down, sand it down, and retest the fit. All right, so I've been doing a lot of thinking about how to fix this leg top. So the initial plan, what I was thinking was cutting this on a 6-degree bevel. That way then this will be level with the ground or the top, okay? Because this stretcher is angled on 6 degrees. You can see 6 degrees. So essentially right now, the outside edges are level, and of course the inside edges are angled down. So I thought if I planed off the outside edge and make that level with the back, then I could just lay a saw on here, flush, and cut the leg off. Well, I probably should have thought of that first because I notched into these legs a little bit, and I'm afraid if I do that now, I might have a small gap or something that would be seen from the top. So I thought about this last night, and I think I've come up with a solution. So I have some of this 3/16 inch hardy board, and I've cut a hole in it. And so when I place this on here, again, the hardy board is resting on the outside edges here. So this now, you can't tell from the camera, but this is actually a parallel surface with what the top or the ground is, all right? So this is parallel. And what I'm going to do is with my pencil, keeping my pencil flat on here, I'm going to trace around this leg. And you can see that that line now is parallel with what will be the floor or the top, and I can cut that, and it also gives me just a little bit of space between the top of the stretcher and the leg, just a small amount. Not only will be a nice little detail, but I won't have to worry about seeing any of that notched area on the leg. I can actually put a couple of clamps on this, hold it in place, and then with this Irwin Asian style saw, I can keep this flat right on my workpiece, and I can cut the leg tops right off from here. So trying to cut the leg in the table, dry fitted together, it was just wiggling around on me too much, so I took it all apart, got it clamped up here in the vise. I already have my mark, and I've slowly been sawing on it, and I'm not starting the saw and trusting myself to go straight down. I'm sawing a little bit and rotating, kind of working my way to the center. That way, hopefully I don't screw it up, and if I need to, I can sand the top a little bit and get that smooth and flat. All right, not too bad. Nothing a little sanding can't fix. Okay, I had that table all knocked down and disassembled, and at this time, I still do have to put a 6-degree angle on the top part of the stretcher. That 6 degrees is going to make it so that that is parallel with the floor, and so that the top can rest flat on it. So you probably noticed some blue tape there wrapped around the table saw blade on the plate. That's because the opening on that plate was too wide, and I was worried about scraps of wood falling down in there. It's time for me to do a little bit of pre-assembly, and what I want to do is I want to assemble the legs and the side stretcher and apron. Now, it's really hard to get clamps on this for a couple of reasons. One, it's angled, so when I put a clamp on it, it's going to want to slide. And two, the legs are round. So I'm going to show you a tip that's actually an old technique, and it works really well. So I have some rope that I've wrapped around the legs, and by twisting a dowel rod between it, that's putting some tension and pressure on the legs, thus by clamping it together. If my voice sounds a little bit funny, I'm sorry. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather today. But let me explain to you what I'm checking out right now. So as you can see, I got the whole table completely upside down. I have it dry fitted together. And what I'm checking out now is I want to check from the floor to the top of the table its final height. Now, this is a great book that I refer to all the time, Illustrated Cabinet Making. And not only does this have a bunch of projects in there and ideas, but it gives you proper measurements so that your pieces are ergonomically correct and comfortable to sit at. And so what it's recommending in this book, that a floor to the top of the table should be somewhere between 27 and 30 inches tall. Now I know that the average chair is between 17 and 18 inches tall, but my client's chairs are 19 inches tall. So that gives me 1 extra inch to work with. So I can actually go from the floor to the top, and I can get 31 inches. Now my client also wants on the legs these little foot pads to be put on. Well, this adds an extra 3/8 of an inch. So what I've decided to do is to make up for that extra 3/8, the apron, I'm gonna cut 3/8 of an inch off on that. Now I know what you're saying. You're like, Chad, well, wait a second. You got plenty of room here. Why don't you just cut the leg 3/8 of an inch shorter to make room for that foot pad? Well, here's another problem that I've run into. According to the book, I need between 24 and 29 inches of leg room, and that would be from the floor to the bottom side of this apron, which I have. I have plenty of that. I have at the moment, let's see, let's double check. I have 26 and a quarter. So that's right in the specs. Now, I'm not a real tall guy, but I'm slightly above average. I'm 6'1", and from the floor to my knee, my leg measures at 22.5. However, my client, his leg measures at 25.5. He's a rather tall guy. And so at 26.25, I'm not giving him a whole lot of room to get in there. So if I made this leg shorter, I just shortened that distance for him. So thereby, that's why I'm cutting the apron. That will bring the whole thing down a little bit, and I'm leaving the maximum length that I can on the leg so he has enough knee room to get in there. Now, I made another problem for myself. When I turned these legs, I thought I turned them extra long with waste and material to cut off. But you'll notice this is the final height that I want. I have to cut it where I didn't turn it down enough. And I can't put this back in the lathe and finish turning that because I've already cut those tops. So at this point, I'm thinking I might have to use a gouge and carefully pare that down. I don't know. That's just another problem that I've run into. I try to think ahead of every possible scenario, but as you see, sometimes you can't. So let me start working on that and see how it turns out. Now, one more thing before I take this apart. You notice that I flipped the table back upright, and I have it sitting on the top of the table now. And what I want to do is I want to take a compass and I want to set this to that pencil line, that measured height to cut, because I still have to cut these legs on an angle, and this compass is going to draw my line for me. Let me show you. So I'm going to take the compass and I'm going to set it to that pencil line that I made. Okay. Now, by keeping the compass flat on the table, it's going to allow me to draw a pencil going all around that leg, but it's also at that same angle that needs to be cut. And so just like before, I'll take this out, put it in the vise, and I'll hand cut that off.
right, since I had the legs all disassembled, at this time I just took my drill and kind of countersank down in there, and then that way I can put in the little foot pad. Just like that.
All right, so that's where we're going to stop for today. The next video, looking ahead, it seems like it's going to be a little bit of a shorter one. So I could do a couple things for you. I've been building some cabinets a lot in the shop here, and I have a very nice little cabinet tip that I could share with you. It'd be a nice short little video we could do that would complement the next dining room build table. Or I could give you a little shop tour of the different projects that I am building in the shop. So I'm just curious, you could leave your comments below. A couple of things, if you weren't aware of it, we do offer a free monthly newsletter. If you want, you can sign up below there in the description box. That comes out once a month, and once it goes out, it's gone for good. So sign up today. Also too, if you're on Facebook, well, I have a Facebook group page called What Are You Doing? This is where you can kind of post pictures of the projects that you're making in the shop, whether it's in progress or completely done. You can ask questions and just get some good advice from other fellow woodworkers like yourself. Well, I do hope you did enjoy today's video and found some tips in it that were helpful that you could use in the future. If you wouldn't mind, please like it, share the video, and leave your comments below. It definitely helps me out. And of course, if you're working in your shop and you have a problem or a question and need some advice, well, feel free to email me at woodshoppingtime@gmail.com, because my whole goal is to make you a better woodworker. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, keep on dancing.